So for this video, I will be doing a dedicated book review for a thriller that I recently just finished called Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. Now, I don't normally make these kinds of videos, but this book review will be a spoiler-filled rant review. I did not like this book, y'all. I was severely disappointed by it, which was disappointing because I had read last year Daisy Darker, which was one of the best thrillers that I read last year. And then another one of her books I thought was kind of okay. His and Hers was more of like a 3-star book. And this book started out pretty good. Like, I was enjoying the premise. I was enjoying the main character. And I was just curious to see how it all wrapped up. But y'all, the last like 10% of this book just was rage-inducing. Like, I did not like how it ended. And it kind of just ruined the whole experience of it. And that's what this video is going to be about. Why I hated Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. So if y'all want to watch me do a rant review for this random thriller, stay tuned because that's what this video is all about. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So before I get into the actual review, like I mentioned, Daisy Darker, I really enjoyed. It's a 4.5, 5-star book. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And that one had a really good twist ending. So I know that Alice Feeney is capable of writing really good twists. And then, like I also mentioned, His and Hers was pretty good. Not one of my favorites, but it was serviceable for what it was. So jumping into this book, which was her new book that came out January 2025, very excited for this book. And also, this was our February pick for our Thrill, Chill, or Kill book club that me and my wife, Stacy, run over on the Book Astronomer Discord. This was our pick for February. And a lot of people have read this book this month and have kind of had very similar complaints about what I'm going to complain about in this video. So a lot of people have not been enjoying this book. And yeah, so I'm going to kind of jump into it. But before I get into the spoiler stuff, I'll leave this first part kind of spoiler free. The premise of this book is interesting because the very first chapter, we have this main character. I don't remember the name of the main character, but he's a writer. And he's kind of anxious about his book career, but he just got a call that his book made the New York Times bestsellers list. So he's very excited. So he calls his wife, and she's excited for him. But then all of a sudden, she gets off the phone, and it's realized that she's disappeared. And no one knows where she went. He doesn't have any idea, like, where'd she go? Who knows what happened? And then we jump a year later, and he's still struggling to write his second book, and he's really, anxious and just depressed about his wife gone missing or presumably dead. And his literary agent kind of goes to him and says, look, you're not really writing that much, and we really need you to publish another thing. And so I'm going to offer you this one-time deal where you can go to this kind of island. I forget where it is exactly, but you can go to this island where it's a remote community. It's very quiet, very peaceful, very tranquil, and you can get your book done there. And he's like, okay, let's go and do that. So he gets there, and wouldn't you know it, he kind of sees what could potentially be his wife there. And he's like, oh, is this her? Like, is she dead? And then he's like, well, no, it can't be. Like, that's not her. Didn't quite look like her. And so you get here, or he gets there, and kind of, this was one of the main complaints. So this is kind of jumping into spoiler territory here. So that's kind of the main premise where, like, you've got this writer character whose wife goes missing for a year, and then he goes to this remote island to try to get work done. But the whole time he's there, he keeps thinking that he sees his missing wife there. So that's kind of the premise of the book, which to me is a very interesting premise. You're like, ooh, this is going to be kind of creepy. This is going to be... It was a really good premise to start with. But one of my main complaints to start with, which wasn't a major deal, but it was kind of annoying. Like, a lot of the beginning of this book is him kind of getting introduced to the characters of the island and getting used to the lore of the island, and very good atmosphere, I will say. Like, to start out with, it was very good atmosphere from the book. And the characters were all pretty interesting, including the main character, at least at the start of this book, and for the majority of the book, the main character was very interesting and promising. But kind of the annoying part is that very back and forth between, like, oh, did I just see her? No, that couldn't have been her. Oh, did I just see her over there? Like, it kept happening. You're just like, okay, is that her or not? Like, that kept happening. Like, especially the first half of the book. So that was all kind of annoying, but I was still like, you know, you get halfway through this book and you get kind of sucked into the story and the character, and you're wondering what the hell is going on. So that's kind of the intrigue of this book. And then I can't remember if it's like halfway through the book or maybe a little bit more than halfway through, but chapter 31, which you know, we have the Bookish Termer Discord channel open for this over on the Bookish Termer Discord, and I've marked kind of spoilers for the different chapters, but I marked it chapter 31, like he sees this person who looks just like his wife, who's been missing for a year. But there's slight differences. The eye color is different. She has a tattoo. She's married to this woman. So he's like, what the hell is going on here? And so that was kind of interesting, and that was definitely intriguing. It's like, okay, how is all this happening? How does this make sense? So chapter 31, you're just like, you get to that point, you're like, oh, I gotta figure out what's happening here. But then you just get further on into the book, and then you basically realize like what's going on, and it's just utterly ridiculous. So the main character kind of realizes that on this island, there's only women, which, to be fair, like when I was reading this book, I didn't really recognize that, but it's probably something I should have picked up on. But he eventually figures that out, and he's kind of like, why is there only women here? Like, where are all the men? And it's a remote island, and there's only like 20, 25 people there, which is not very much, but you'd figure there'd be at least some men there, but there's not. And there's a reason for that, because something happened on the island that basically made all of the women want to kind of weed out all of the men. So like once the men started to either leave or die out, whenever they needed someone whenever they needed to hire someone, like if they needed like a gardener or a bartender, they would basically only hire women, and they would just kind of weed out all of the men. And kind of for a long time, the only man that was there was this writer character, and I probably should have talked about that at the start. But he gets there, and he's staying at this inn or this house that this famous writer used to live in, and he was like a best-selling author, and he wrote like 9 books, but there was a 10th book that he worked on that nobody kind of knew about, that he found hidden in the house, like under the floorboards or something. And so basically what he's doing is not really writing his own book. He's kind of taking that undiscovered manuscript and just kind of rewriting it and making it his own thing. And he's kind of paranoid that someone's going to figure it out. Of course, they do. But basically you figure out like the only reason that guy was there was because they allowed him to be there, because he's making the island money by writing these books and accumulating all of this money. I think they get like a cut of it, like 10% or something. And so you've got all of these so-called like independent women. Like, we want an island of only women, no men, because, you know, something happened in the island's past that like was despicable, and like we don't need men here, except if they can make us money, which is just asinine. So basically he figures out all of this past stuff where like there was trauma with all these kids dying, and so they were like, okay, we need to get rid of all the men, except for this guy, because he's making us a shit ton of money. So like that's what we need here. And basically that was the women's plan. And also, God, I'm sorry, y'all. This is going all over the place, because this last chunk of the book, so much is introduced, and it's just so shitty that I'm trying to remember all of the shittiness that happens in this book. But basically, you know, that was his wife. Like in chapter 31, that is his wife, but she kind of faked her own death in a way, and I'll get to that part of the book later. But she fakes her death, moves to this island, and they kind of put together this scheme. The literary agent is with it the whole time, so she knows all of this. And their plan is to essentially get this guy to move here so he can write more books, so he can make the island more money, because they don't want tourists there the whole year, I guess. And they only want women there, except for the one man who can make the money, which again is just the most ludicrous plan I've ever heard. And like the whole time I'm thinking, like, why not just get like a woman author? Like, why does it have to be a man? Like, get like a really good female author that can write y'all books and then make you money, and then you don't have to do this whole crazy dastardly deed. God, this book is fucking stupid. But anyway, that's not even the most ridiculous part of this book. Like, that whole scheme is stupid, But the other part of this plan, or not even part of the plan, but just a part of this book, at the very beginning, like I mentioned, like he's calling his wife to tell her that he wrote a best-selling book and that he's on the bestsellers list. And then she discovers, like while he's on the phone, she's like, oh, I think I see a dead body. Like I need to go investigate. And then after that, she disappears. Like no one knows what happened to her. But the reality of what happened is so stupid and it makes no sense. So she discovers the dead body. It was actually him like wearing, like disguised as like a female because she thinks it's like a dead body of a woman. But it's actually him, surprise, and he chloroforms her and pushes her off a cliff to try to kill her. Because he thinks that she's pregnant with another man's baby. So the whole time, this guy knows that he killed her or tried to kill her. But the reader doesn't know that. But like, what? You're in the perspective of the guy the whole time. God! This book is so fucking stupid, y'all. Oh my God. So you get that reveal, and it just doesn't make any fucking sense. Like this, the last 10% of this book just ruined like a perfectly reasonable, good thriller. Like this wasn't, like I was getting like 75% through this book, and I'm like, this isn't going to be an all-time favorite, but I'm having a good time with it. So I hope that the ending can kind of wrap things up here. But like, it's just fucking stupid. Like this whole plan, and just like, so he kills her, and we don't know this whole time, and he is pretending like he doesn't know that. Like that's information that he knows that the reader is not, or that the reader doesn't know, because he's not giving it to us, even though we're in the perspective of him the whole time, which is asinine. And then not only that, she survives somehow, and then she goes back to this island where she grew up, and then she gets with the literary agent to put this whole scheme together just so he can get to the island and make them money. Fucking stupid. And then let me just make sure that I'm not forgetting anything, because this fucking thing was a trip, man. Oh, and then of course you get to the last chapter, and basically they tell him like, you can either stay here, write us more books, make us more money, or we'll kill you. So that's their plan. So he decides to stay there, and he does. He writes more books, and it's about a year later, and they're making the island more. He's making the island more money. Things are going well as they can. But then the last chapter, they kill him anyway. I'm just, what are you doing? Like, you had a good, that was your plan the whole time, and now you kill the guy. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's so stupid. And then again, I'm reiterating this because this whole thing is like, I've read books like this before where you get to the end of the book and it's just like, oh, you know, men are evil. They're the cause of all things bad in society, which is probably true, but still, it's annoying for like every book nowadays to have that kind of ending. But like, you have that message, but then you get an island of only women, like, and we don't want anything to do with men, but they still need a man to make them money. What? God, this book, and again, why couldn't you have just hired a woman author to do the same thing that he's doing? Like, you can find a competent women author and just do the same thing, and you won't have to worry about killing her. This book just drove me fucking nuts. This book is, and I want to give this lower than 2 stars because you can see how visceral this book is making me angry. But like, it was good. Like the main character was well written. The book is well written. Alice Feeney is a good author, and she's capable of writing great books. Daisy Darker was one of my favorite thrillers that I read last year. So I can't really give this book lower than 2 stars just because for the majority of this book, it was good. But good God, like what a fucking 180 this book took. I was just like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. I'm enjoying it. And then you get to the last 10% and it's just god fucking awful. But yeah, that's this book in a nutshell, man. Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. Definitely a top contender for most disappointing book of 2025, the worst book of 2025. Just flat out, just a huge disappointment. This book, I'm sure I haven't even touched on all the things, but basically, like, you know, it started out good. Like, the premise was good. but then, first of all, he tried to kill her, and we had no knowledge of that. So sometimes unreliable narrator can work, but sometimes it's nuggety like this. Like, you're just like, what? No. So that's stupid. Also, it didn't really make sense because he was on the phone with her. And it's like a lot of logistical stuff with that. That's weird. And then she survived, and then her plan is to go back to the island where she was raised. And then she gets the literary agent involved, and then they come up with this asinine plan of getting him to the island. And then the whole time, also, they're just messing with him because, like, they're doing all these little things just to kind of mess with his mind. And she's there the whole time. So, like, he does see her. Like, every time he thinks he sees her, and then we're like, okay, maybe he's just seeing things because he's emotional and has PTSD. No, he's seeing her, and she's going as far as, like, I think changing her hair and then changing her eye color and having like a tattoo and then marrying a woman. So it's just like, she's there just fucking with them, you know? Like, oh God. And then, yeah, like I said, their plan is, it's one of the stupidest endings to a thriller I've ever read. And I've read some pretty dumb thrillers, but good God. This book was competently written, and then I just think she got to the end of this book and just had no idea how to wrap this up, and then she just kind of came up with this last minute, which is like, you know what, this could work. I'm sure people will like this. Well, guess what? I don't. I fucking hated it. So this is why I don't do rant reviews, because I can just go on like this forever, and this book will be half hour, or this review will be half hour long, just me screaming at myself, you know? So yeah, so that's my rant review for Beautiful Ugly. All right, now that that's done, have you guys read this book? That's my rant review here. I'm gonna stop it there because I could probably keep going, but I'm just gonna stop. So let me know, have y'all read this book? Like I mentioned, we did this for our Thrill, Chill, or Kill book club. I think pretty much everybody is in agreement that this book started out well enough, but the ending sucked. So a lot of people did not enjoy the experience. I give it a kill rating. Kill it with fire immediately. So yeah, have y'all read this book? Definitely let me know. And definitely let me know if you liked the ending. I'd love to hear your opinions on if you really liked this book or even loved it. Definitely comment that down below. But also, if you want to be like me and rant review this book, leave your comments down below. And whether you enjoyed it or not, I'd love to hear your opinions. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and the Bookerstormer Discord, where again, we have the Thrill, Chill, or Kill book clubs. Usually they're better than this crap, but we have that. We also have the Patreon link down below if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month. And I have my Amazon wish list if you'd like to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a fantastic day.